The little Ukrainian-Belarusian border town of Chernobyl, which was a part of the Soviet Union at the time, was hit by a catastrophe on April 26, 1986, when a sequence of steam explosions led to a nuclear meltdown. Hundreds of thousands of people were affected by the cataclysmic event, and it had a significant influence on the ecosystem in the neighboring communities. On the other hand, something peculiar is taking place over 40 years later. The Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, CEZ, which encompasses the nuclear plant and encompasses an area of about 1,000 square miles, is gradually becoming one of the largest scientific studies undertaken anywhere in the world for the purpose of investigating the long-term consequences of ionizing radiation. Despite the fact that people may have left the region, some creatures continued to remain there. In 2016, a research reported that the eastern tree frogs, Hyla orientalis, in the CEZ, display different traits than their adjacent relatives. In 2023, another study identified significant genetic variations between Chernobyl canines and dogs living just 10 miles away in Chernobyl City. Both of these studies were conducted in the same year. Now, scientists Kara Love and Shane Campbell Stanton from Princeton University are investigating yet another peculiar mammalian trait of the CEZ, which is the unusually high number of wolves that live there. At the annual meeting of the Society of Integrative and Comparative Biology, which took place in January, the findings of the research that had been conducted for a decade were presented. Due to the fact that wolves are apex predators, sometimes known as the top of the food chain, doing research on them in the CEZ is a very intriguing endeavor. For the most part, this is a privileged position within an ecosystem. Yet, when that environment is flooded with radiation, these creatures are compelled to consume irradiated prey that consumed irradiated plants that developed out of irradiated soil. To put it simply, it is radiation with a downward trajectory. Love asserts that this is not the case, despite the fact that this would appear to imply that wolves would be severely affected in the CEZ. Earlier this month, she said to National Public Radio that the wolf populations in the Central European Zone, CEZ, are really 7 times more dense than the protected wildlife regions in Belarus, which is a neighboring country. Gray wolves offer a really interesting opportunity to understand the impacts of chronic, low-dose, multi-generational exposure to ionizing radiation, Campbell Stanton said in an interview with National Public Radio, NPR. As an evolutionary biologist, the very first question that came to my mind was whether or not this radiation was sufficient of a stressor to actually be a selective pressure, the author writes. In an attempt to get a better understanding of the population's reaction to the radiation that caused cancer at Chernobyl, the Princeton researchers put collars to these CEZ wolves in 2014. These collars had both a global positioning system, GPS, and radiation dosimeters. The researchers made the discovery throughout the course of time that the wolves were routinely exposed to radiation levels that were 6 times greater than the permissible limit for humans. The argument put out by Love and Campbell Stanton proposes that wolves are undergoing a kind of natural selection that is occurring at a fast pace, which is most likely brought about by the rapid changes that are occurring in their surrounding habitat. Within the CEZ, there were certain wolves that have genes that rendered them more resistant to cancer than other wolves. In spite of the fact that they continued to get cancer at the same rate, these hardy dogs simply did not experience as much of an effect, which enabled them to pass on those genes to subsequent generations. Therefore, in general, we discovered that the sections within Chernobyl that are developing at the quickest rate are located in and around genes that we are aware of playing a role in the immune response to cancer, or the immunological response to anti-tumor in animals, Campbell Stanton said in an interview with NPR. Despite the fact that the data demonstrates that the CEZ wolves have a definite genetic basis for their resistance to cancer, Campbell Stanton is quick to point out that these wolves are also free from other biological stressors, the most notable of which is the presence of people. In order to determine the potential implications of these findings for human health, the team is presently collaborating with cancer experts. For many years, Chernobyl has been portrayed as a catastrophic ecological catastrophe, which it most certainly was. However, over the course of the last 10 years, the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, CEZ, has also seemed to be looking more and more like an exceptional scientific opportunity.